Chris Washington drives down a winding country road, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar landscape. The trees, towering and dense, seem to close in around him as the sunlight filters through the leaves. His fingers tap the steering wheel nervously as he thinks about the weekend ahead. Rose Armitage, his girlfriend, sits beside him, talking about how her parents are excited to meet him. But Chris can't shake the feeling of unease. There's a subtle tension in his chest that he can't explain. As they approach the Armitage estate, the scenery shifts. The country road opens up to reveal a grand mansion set far back from the road. It's the kind of house that looks like it belongs in another era, with its tall white columns and perfectly manicured lawn. It feels cold, detached from the warmth of the natural world around it. Chris is welcomed by Rose's parents, Dean and Missy Armitage, who exude friendliness. But beneath the polite small talk and cheerful smiles, Chris senses something off. There's an underlying current to their behavior that he can't quite place. Dean's comments about voting for Obama and Missy's overly familiar questions about Chris's past make him uncomfortable. And then there are the housekeepers, Walter and Georgina, both black, both unnervingly distant. Their robotic politeness and vacant stares unsettle Chris further. As the first evening passes, Chris notices more strange behavior. During dinner, Dean goes on a rambling monologue about the benefits of genetic superiority, masking it as casual conversation about sports. Chris tries to brush it off, but his discomfort grows. Rose defends her parents, assuring Chris that they're just trying too hard to be friendly. Later that night, unable to sleep, Chris steps outside for a cigarette. In the moonlit darkness, he spots Walter running full speed across the lawn, his face emotionless, his movements unnatural. And in the house, Georgina stands before a mirror, touching her face as if she doesn't recognize the reflection. It's as though they are trapped in their own bodies. Missy appears, her soft voice breaking the silence. She offers to help Chris quit smoking through hypnosis. Though he declines at first, he soon finds himself sitting in her study, gazing into the flickering light of a teacup. His muscles slacken, his mind drifting away. He feels himself falling into a vast, dark void, a place she calls the sunken place. Chris is trapped, floating in an infinite abyss. His body is distant, as though he's watching himself from far away. He screams, but no sound escapes. He claws at the nothingness, but his body remains paralyzed. He is powerless, a mere observer of his own fate. When he finally wakes up, drenched in sweat, it feels like more than a nightmare. His memory of the hypnosis is hazy, but the terror lingers. Missy's calm smile, her voice commanding him to sink deeper, sticks with him. The next day, Rose's family hosts their annual gathering, and the Armitage home fills with wealthy, older white guests. Chris is paraded around like an exotic specimen, their interest in him unsettling. They ask invasive questions about his physicality, his background, even complimenting his skin in ways that feel like veiled objectification. Chris's anxiety deepens when he meets another black man, Logan, at the party. Logan, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, acts strangely, speaking in an affected, unnatural manner. Chris feels a connection with him, but can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. When he discreetly tries to take a photo of Logan, the flash goes off accidentally, and Logan's demeanor changes completely. His eyes widen in terror, and he grabs Chris, shouting frantically, "Get out! Get out of here!" The outburst sends ripples of fear through Chris. Something sinister is at play, but Rose dismisses it, assuring him that Logan simply had a seizure. Chris isn't convinced. The way the other guests return to normal, as though nothing happened, makes his skin crawl. As Chris's paranoia grows, he decides to leave. But every attempt to break free from the Armitage house is thwarted. His phone mysteriously loses power, and Rose becomes evasive. He begins to piece together the truth. Through cryptic conversations, Chris realizes that the Armitage family and their guests have been involved in something far more disturbing than he could have imagined. They aren't just racially ignorant. They are harvesting black bodies, placing the consciousness of white people into them in a twisted form of immortality. Logan, Walter, and Georgina aren't themselves. They are vessels for the wealthy white people who've taken over their minds. Chris's desperation reaches a breaking point when he discovers a box of photos in Rose's room, photos of her with previous black partners, each one of them now either missing or replaced by a new consciousness. He confronts Rose, but it's too late. Her facade drops, and she reveals her complicity in the family's horrific scheme. Chris is trapped. The Armitages plan to auction off his body, his consciousness to be replaced by that of one of their guests. Missy, Dean, Rose, and their brother Jeremy close in, ready to perform their procedure. But Chris refuses to surrender. With sheer determination and primal instinct, he fights back, escaping the twisted nightmare of the Armitage house. As Chris makes his escape, bloodied and exhausted, the Armitages chase him down. The once idyllic estate is now a battleground. With each step, Chris inches closer to freedom, but the weight of what he's discovered threatens to consume him. The family, relentless in their pursuit, closes in, but Chris refuses to go back to the sunken place. Just when it seems like he's doomed, a flash of hope arrives. A friend from the outside world who hasn't forgotten him. Together, they bring an end to the Armitage's reign of terror. The nightmare is over, but the trauma lingers. Chris has escaped, but he knows that the scars will remain. The story of Get Out is one of psychological horror, racial tension, and survival. Through atmospheric tension and unsettling imagery, the story unravels a disturbing reality where the body and mind are commodified for the twisted benefit of the privileged. Chris's journey from unwitting guest to survivor is a harrowing reflection of the fight for agency, autonomy, and freedom in a world that seeks to strip those very things away. Do you face any such experience? Share your story in comments.